There was a time in my life when every day was confusion, self-hatred, and really feeling like there was no place for me in the world, which made me feel like killing myself was the answer. I couldn't get it to stop as much as I wanted to stop, but it did stop. It stopped on January 21st, 2007 when I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And when I say I gave my life to Jesus Christ, that meant I took a step back and I surrendered everything that I thought I knew about life and everything I was doing in life, and I asked Him for direction. And when I asked Him for direction, I asked with a willing spirit and a willing heart to go do what I felt He would call me to do. And through prayer and supplication and meditating a lot and trying to understand God through His Word, I felt God call me to things. And that work that I did for Him has freed me from my suffering, has given my life purpose, and ultimately led me to a place of happiness and joy I didn't even know existed. I now have almost 18 years of sobriety. I was a homeless heroin addict, meth addict, and a person who served time in prison for armed robbery. I'm no longer that person today, and I have Jesus to thank for that.
Hello, it's Michael Molthan, and you are watching Into the Rock, where we talk about inspirational stories with inspirational people. And this show is brought to you by South Texas Recovery Foundation, and also with our guest today, by default, PH Wellness out in California. We're going to get more into that. Got a special guest today. As you know, you've been following me for the last 7 years, and all the guests we've had on the show. They're great guests, but this guest is different. This guest is actually a very good friend of mine. This is actually a guest that is in my very small circle that I talk to, weekly, sometimes daily, and we jab each other. He's a lawman in recovery. Tony Hoffman, the great Tony Hoffman, inspirational speaker. He is a owner and founder of PH Wellness, a treatment center out in California. We'll get more into that. But before we get into it, I want you to watch this and watch this amazing story that was viewed on millions of people and was on Goldcast. If you've heard of Goldcast, he's a TED Talk speaker. The guy's he's got plaques for days on his walls of all the accomplishments of what he's doing to help people in recovery. So check this out.
In my 35 years of being alive, this is the most vivid memory I have. I will never forget this moment. I walk into Nate's room, I said, "Nate, I need a sleeping bag." I said, "Bro, I'm sleeping on the street tonight." For the next 6 months, I slept on the street. I slept behind dumpsters so people couldn't find me. I slept in dirt fields so people couldn't find me. If I was lucky, I got a Motel 6. If I was luckier, I got somebody's couch to sleep on. Something I said I would never do was put a needle in my arm to use drugs. I've never been so ashamed of myself. I've never felt so much guilt in my life than when I was homeless. On January 22nd, I was arrested in a home that I broke into. 30 days later, I was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. And I told myself, I'm just smoking weed one time, that's it. This whole becoming homeless thing, losing all my friends, that'll never happen to me. I remember when I got to prison at Wasco State Prison on D Yard, cell 254, I had the top bunk. I walk into my cell, I lay down on my bunk and I look up in the ceiling. Somebody had written this quote with a pencil in the ceiling. It said, "Be careful what you think, because your thoughts become your words. Be careful what you say, because your words become your actions." And I kept reading it over and over and over and over. It was making so much sense to me. So I set 4 goals while I was in that prison cell. I said, when I get out of here, I'm gonna race BMX professionally. I'm gonna go to the Olympics. I'm gonna become a professional speaker. I'm gonna start a nonprofit organization called the Free Will Project, but I didn't know how I was gonna go from a prison cell to the Olympics. So I told myself this after learning a really valuable life lesson, and that valuable life lesson is this: if you could be trusted with little, you'll be trusted with much. I told myself I'm gonna learn how to brush my teeth, but I'm gonna treat brushing my teeth like it's going to the Olympics. Then I learned how to make my bed. After I learned how to make my bed, I learned how to organize my stuff. After I learned how to organize my stuff, I learned how to physically train hard every single day in prison without taking any days off. If you want to be successful, work that routine every single day and sacrifice everything else that doesn't fall into your routine. I remember being at Tehachapi State Prison. 17 degrees outside, snowing on the yard. I can't take a day off because it's snowing. It's not snowing on the other side of the world right now. Somebody's getting to train in the heat. If I find a reason to take a day off today because it's too cold, guess what? When it's too hot, I'll find a reason to take a day off then. So I was done making shortcuts. I was done making excuses. I was going to work hard every single day and focus on my dream and focus on my gift. I paroled prison December 13, 2008. After 2 years of being in prison, hadn't touched a bike in 7 years. I took third place. That first year, I won 5 races at the lower pro division, and I moved up to the Olympic level in 2010. In 2011, I made 6 finals before I blew my knee out. And I had to have knee surgery that caused me to not be able to race BMX professionally anymore. And I was crushed. Because my biggest dream was to go to the Olympics. But I told myself, keep brushing your teeth, keep making your bed, keep organizing your stuff, stay focused, you'll find the reason that you blew your knee out. I started coaching BMX athletes in 2012. By 2016, my coaching had went from nobody wanted me to coach them to having 3 national champions, 2 world champions, and 25 athletes from Australia to Bolivia. In 2016, in July, I got a phone call from my top female athlete, Brooke Crane. She said, pack your bags, Hoff. You're going to the Olympics. I made the Olympic team, not as an athlete, as a coach. When I got off the plane, I started crying. I'll never forget when I got to the BMX track where the Olympics was going to be raced. I started crying because I was so overwhelmed with gratitude. I worked so hard and sacrificed so much and gave even when I wasn't getting paid for it because I believed in my gifts. It doesn't matter how gifted you are at something, you're going to fail 1,500 times before you actually get to see your dream the way you see it. And if you don't learn how to fail and get back up, you're never going to get to where you want to go in life. I came here to tell you, one choice can change the rest of your lives.
My man, Tony Hoffman. Ooh, that gives me goosebumps to this day.
Thanks, brother.
Okay. So good to have you on the show, finally.
Yeah, I feel like a long time coming. I'm glad to be here. And of course, I just know that this is going to be great. We have great conversation, great insight. And, we love challenging each other with our thoughts and ideas and perspectives.
Absolutely. And today's going to be a really cool show because I want to tackle some topics.
Sure.
Because you and I are offline saying, man, you speak a lot, I speak a lot, do a lot of interviews. And I'm like, bro, do you ever get tired of telling your story?
Yeah.
Telling our story, and because we want to hit issues that help people,
right?
And what we want to do. But before we get into it, PH Wellness, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I started PH Wellness with my business partner Matt Paz. That's where PH came from, Paz Hoffman.
Okay.
It's kind of a play on words. Our motto is Find Your Balance, PH Wellness.
Right.
And Matt and I came together in 2020. During the pandemic. He was the one that really kind of spearheaded the idea. I knew I wanted to start a treatment center back in 2018 when I met with Chris Herron. He was kind of the inspiration behind how was I going to get off the road 250 days a year, and what did the next chapter of my life look like? So Chris gave me the inspiration to start my own treatment center as a way to get off the road and continue to do the work of helping others that were just like me. Matt was the one that really came with the idea.
Right.
Not necessarily the name, but the idea that, hey, I want to start a treatment center. I had the guy on my podcast in 2019, and we followed each other on Instagram. We're friends, but didn't talk much. And then during the pandemic, he just started calling me like nonstop. And if you ever get to know Matt, he's as persistent as me, maybe more persistent than I am. And I wasn't answering the phone. I had COVID. I was in the middle of moving to Dallas and just wasn't really interested in answering the phone. Finally, he called one of my best friends. Was like, you got to get this guy to answer the phone.
So you're a Cali boy.
Yeah, I'm from Cali. I'm originally from Central California. He's from Southern California. So we meshed together. He says he wants to start this treatment center. I was kind of not really for it at first because I wanted to start my own center that I had control over, right? I was raising my own money, traveling around speaking, and my idea was I'm going to start a treatment center and it's going to run the way I want it to run, which is for the people, by the people, 100% client-centered. But when I met with Matt, I started to realize I think this is God connecting the stars, right? This is God saying this is how we're going to do this. It's not going to be yours. It's going to be ours, and Matt and I's and a couple other people. And And I just felt like, you know what, I think this is it. And I took the chance. There was a lot of investment on everybody's part, you know, whether it was second mortgages on the house, draining retirement accounts and savings accounts, checking accounts, and coming together and just saying, you know what, we're going to create something special.
So, I mean, you pushed all the chips in.
Yeah, I went all in.
You went all in on this deal, and you've had an incredible career, money-wise, by speaking. You've been speaking for a long time, and I think you said earlier, you know, you're on the road over 200 days a year.
Yep.
I know a lot of times when I'm texting you and all that stuff, you say, hey, I'm about to take off and land. Yep. But you found a niche in speaking. I mean, you speak to the youth and to schools. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to speak when I was in prison. I felt like God was telling me I needed to tell my story. And when I got out of prison, I kind of hit the ground running. In the first year when I got out was starting to speak. The issue is how do I speak? You know, you want to speak, but how do you do that?
Right.
What I found was if you wanted to speak to kids, the best way to do that was to speak to clubs. And the clubs that were looking for speakers all the time were the Christian clubs, Fellowship of Christian Athletes or Youth for Christ. And so they had speakers every week or every month. And so I got my feet wet, you know, doing a couple of Christian clubs. And then I helped a person get into treatment. And he was a young man, maybe 19 years old at the time, if I remember correctly. His mother was a teacher. And she said, hey, do you think you would want to speak to 1,200 middle school kids for Red Ribbon Week? And I was like, oh, yeah, heck yeah. So when I went in and spoke to all these kids, like they were paying attention. And my mom was there, and it was such a great experience because, you know, you're holding a microphone and you really care about these kids and their futures, and you're trying to give them what you think that you would have needed when you were that age to help you make better decisions, feel better about yourself or your situation, whatever it was. And they were paying attention. And I just remember, you know, afterwards thinking, wow, that was amazing. Like the feeling you get.
Yeah, and they were actually helping you.
Yeah, it was helping me more, right? Like, and I didn't realize that at the time, you know, how much it was helping me heal as I told my story and went through, you know, the file cabinets, because it wasn't a script. There was never a script for me. I never sat down, hired a coach and said, this is what my speech is going to be. It was like, I'm going to hold the mic and I'm going to rip it from start to finish. Here's who I was when I started my life. Here's who I am now. This is the details in between, right? And my mom, she was just like, Anthony, I think you're really good at this. Like, maybe we need to pursue this as a career. And so, you know, as moms do, they step up and start Googling stuff and figuring things out. And she's like, you know, I think you can make good money doing this. And that was the beginning of it. You know what I'm saying? And then it was a lot of no's. We're going to go another direction. And then trying to figure out how to become a national speaker and marketing yourself. There was just so much involved, but I never gave up. I just continued to do what I loved to do because I felt like that was what God was calling me to do. And I remember telling a young person that I mentor right now, he's a musician, and he's trying to figure out how to make his way in music, which is also very difficult, more difficult than becoming a speaker, right? And I remember telling him it has to be about the music, right? It has to be about you, God, and the music. If you just do the work and you love what you do and you do it for God, opportunities will flow your way. But you don't get to decide the timeline between you in the moment and the dream and you living in that dream, right? And like I tried to show him, I showed him this one time. I was like, you know, it was never about the money for me, right? And some people invited me to speak and they said they would give me $50. It was a big deal.
Right.
And I actually showed him the message that I actually only need like $39.45 because that's exactly how much it would cost in gas to get there.
Right.
I don't need the extra $11.
Right.
It wasn't about the money, but it was very difficult to find somebody that wanted to pay me when it was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to generate income from this because it can't be a charity if I'm going to learn how to support myself as a person. That was a very difficult part, but I was able to manage some of those difficulties and get to a place where most people come to my website now because they've heard of me or somebody has heard me speak and said, you got to get that guy in and bring him in. So I love it. And it's gone from kids to healthcare companies to, you know, I'm speaking to a transportation for the city in Moline, Illinois. They're transportation employees. So all their bus drivers and people that work for the transportation industry talking about mental health and addiction.
Right.
Let me help you understand mental health and addiction so we can break down stigmas and get people more help that they deserve.
Absolutely. That's so well said. And you've been a great mentor and coach for me that was like, man, how do I do this? I mean, what is going on here? And you've been excellent in helping that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
What got you to Dallas? I mean, I just thought of that when we were talking. I'm like, how'd you get to Dallas?
California pushed me out of California.
Yeah.
I think I just got sick of where I was from, for one.
Right.
Just a lot of bad memories.
Yeah, just time for
It was time to
a healthy one.
Yeah, I mean, I took me and my girl and her son to my hometown for Christmas, and it was like while we were driving around, this is where I got stabbed. This is where I slept on the street. I slept in that dirt field. I slept in a water heater closet here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Her son finally goes, dude, no wonder you don't want to live here. He's like, everywhere we go, you have a bad memory.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah. So I had to get out of California, politics, and the city wasn't for me. I'm like a city slicker, right? I love fashion and good food, and I want to be able to order a pizza at 2:00 in the morning if I'm hungry at 2:00 in the morning, And so I had come through Dallas back in like 2017, dated a girl for a very short period of time. She lived in Oakland, and I just loved the city. I felt like this is a great spot. I also love South Florida, but South Florida was at the edge of the country. Didn't really like the idea of hurricane season.
Right, it puts you more central too, as far as much
For travel
as you do.
Yeah,
I mean, your longest flight is 3 hours.
Totally, and I'm a basketball guy. One of my dreams was to have season tickets to a basketball team, and so I started doing my research, and I found out that I could build a house 6 minutes from the arena. And when I did the math on the flight savings versus flying out of a regional airport and flying out of a major metro airport, I could move here and not have to change my lifestyle. And so it just made sense. Dallas was the place for me. Every time I land here, I feel like I'm home, and instantly just kind of had that feeling like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. So that's how I ended up here.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I have personally visited PH Wellness when I was out there, doing my little tour, and met you out there and toured the facility. And we've had some discussions because at Into the Rock, I'll never forget when we very first started, over 7 years ago. I'm getting blown up by these treatment centers, like offering me gangster money to be a part of Into the Rock. And I'm like, man, these are red flags. And fortunately, very early, I had some people in my life saying, this is a dirty industry. And we've talked about that. And not to get too much in detail about that, but for the people who are watching and on our website, being an M2 approved resource is a big deal. I've done my research on it. It's because I personally toured it. PH Wellness is the only treatment center, clinical treatment center, that is approved by M2 The Rock, if that means anything. But it does mean something to me because of that you do it the right way.
Yeah.
For people who are looking for treatment centers, what are the things they need to look for? What are some of the questions they need to ask for their loved ones?
I think when you call a treatment center, you need to understand you're calling a sales team. And that doesn't, by the way, that's same if you call PH Wellness.
Yeah.
Right. Our admissions team is designed to help people admit into treatment.
Right.
So when you call a treatment center, you're going to speak to a sales representative. It's just called an admissions team.
Right.
And so no matter what you ask, they're going to tell you that their treatment center is the best. My biggest piece of advice is to look around the internet about that treatment center, right? Like our big thing is reviews.
Oh, it's amazing.
You can fake reviews, but you should be able to look at those reviews and get an idea that I don't know that this person was actually a guest at their treatment center. These look like paid reviews, but also a lot of people don't pay for reviews, so you can look at reviews. And I'm always shocked when a treatment center has a 3.5 rating. Or a 4.0 rating, because as a business owner, when somebody leaves a review that critiques us, I want to know, what did we miss?
Right.
What do we need to do differently? So if you do that research, I think you'll find out more about the treatment center. But I think what you really want to know is there any type of programming for the loved ones? Right, because treatment isn't just about the person going into treatment. It's about the people.
Keep going, yeah.
It's also about the people around them. Because a lot of times the people that are around them are struggling just as much with their own stuff. It's just not manifesting in substance use. And so it's like you have to educate yourself on communication, on codependency, on controlling behaviors. how you're speaking to that person and how that makes them react. Sometimes we have people that come into PH Wellness and they don't even want to talk to their parents when they get there. Right? They won't put them on a release of information. And the parents don't realize it's because the things they've said or the things that have been done that are from the person who's checked into treatment, their perspective, wrongdoing. Sometimes right, sometimes resentments that need to be dealt with, and that's exactly why they're drinking or using. But I think number one is, do you have programs where we can be a part of sessions with the loved one that's in treatment? If they don't, I wouldn't even go there.
Right.
It's not worth it.
I agree with that.
Because they're not doing everything to make sure that this person is going to get the treatment that they get. The other thing is I would ask them what their group structure looks like. How many groups therapy sessions are they going to get, and how many individualized therapy sessions are they going to get? Those are very important. And what do those groups look like? Mm-hmm. If they can't tell you what those groups look like, they're probably not very in tune with what their program even is. Because some places don't have a structured idea of how they clinically take a person from start to finish in treatment. So that's a very sketchy place to be, because they're typically the ones that say, well, we're going to run group today. Who's running group? Oh, I'll run group. What are you going to talk about? Why don't we talk about this?
Right.
That's, you know what I mean? There's no idea behind it. So ask about group sessions, therapy sessions, what those sessions look like. And then also, what do you do outside of treatment? Are they going to be stuck there the entire time? Or are you guys going to go on outings and take them places and verify that they actually go on outings? Because people will tell you that they go on outings, and then in 30 days you go on one.
Right.
Because they're understaffed.
Right.
A lot of places are understaffed.
Well, and I want to dig into, and it's the families, that need to, once the loved one goes to PH Wellness, the day they check in and start a program of recovery, and I think you'll agree with me, the families need to start too.
Yes.
Because it's a family disease.
Yes.
And the families, the guys that I work with, and my biggest concern is that the addict starts getting well, and I'm concerned with them going back to a very toxic family. They're not drinking or using, but their behaviors are the same, and it actually triggers the addict.
Yes.
And it can eventually lead back to resentments and relapse.
Yes. Well, in most cases it does.
Yeah.
Unless the person is totally all in, right? And when they go home, they just go straight into their aftercare is what we would call it, or their program in the community, 12-step meetings, church, ministry, a whole web of things that they're going to do in their recovery.
And set that boundary and maintain it.
Yeah. Most don't.
Right.
Most will take the 30 days, leave a different person, but go back to the same environment.
Very common.
And that same environment will wither them away as it did when they were coming up, which is what created kind of the response system that they did when they were using the substances. And so, yes, everybody has to get well. It's a family disease.
Yes.
And the families that buy in on that, things change.
Right.
Or the families that buy in on understanding boundaries and how they've been enabling the addiction to continue, things change. You just have a better chance when it's not just the person going to treatment, getting treatment.
Right. So I'm going to say something here, and when I say this, what does it mean to you? Is that we need to stop focusing on addiction and start focusing on why the addiction.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
To get deeper in that, is addiction is really a symptom of unresolved trauma.
Right.
Because we use drugs and alcohol or anything visible to change our invisible problems.
Sure.
To ease the pain and suffering.
Yep.
How do y'all approach trauma?
So we have to, figure out the root cause.
Yeah.
So you're going to sit down with at least a master's level clinician at PH Wellness. We pride ourselves on making sure that we have licensed clinicians sitting down with our clients. That does not mean that we don't also bring in interns who are earning their hours to become licensed clinicians, but they go through an interview process with either one of our PhDs or master's level clinicians to make sure that they're
Which are usually really good because they're green.
Yes.
They're on fire.
Yeah, they're on fire. But a lot of treatment centers will have one licensed clinician and the rest will be interns, which means they're still learning and figuring things out, which may not be the best for the person who needs the best help that they can get in the situation, especially when it comes to a private treatment center that's not cheap or it costs some type of investment or sacrifice on any end. And so those individualized therapy sessions are going to be about why? What happened? Tell me about your life.
Right.
Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your family model. Tell me about the divorce. Tell me about the friend that died or the parent that died and what that was like. Because a lot of times, most of the time, there is some type of event where it all started, right? It was an event where a person went to war and saw things that were beyond what they were ready for. And when they came back, they were expected to just reintegrate into society and go get a job, and yet they couldn't stop seeing this event that would happen and the person next to them that was blown to pieces, or they lost their limb, and the anxiety that comes with that every single day. And they found relief from the effect of from drugs or alcohol, right? Is we need to identify where it started. Because then once we find out where it started, we then understand why the person has chosen the path that they've chosen. Then they swing into something like group therapy, right? Which is a deep dive oftentimes into the psychology.
You love group therapy.
That's my thing.
It is your thing. In fact, I ran group at PH Wellness when I went through that one time, and it's my thing too.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to go off on a bunny trail, but why is that your thing? Why is it so powerful, group therapy?
Because I think I've been gifted with an understanding and a way to articulate why we are the way we are.
Yeah.
And so when I get up there, I just have this desire to help people understand the fourth dimension of life, right? Is when you can embrace the fourth dimension, which is the spiritual realm, the subconscious mind, and the things that are happening that you're not thinking about. It's your instinctual response to life as it happens, basically your perspective and beliefs, is I want you to have this, because if you can see it, the brain will start retooling itself. If you can accept that what I'm showing you is the truth, then you can start to retool how you view life. Once you change the way you view life, you then have to respond differently because you no longer view it the same. And so when I get there in group therapy, I get so in love and immersed in what I'm doing because I feel like I'm there to offer people a way out.
Right.
I'm here to show them the invisible door that takes them from the pain and suffering to the freedom and peace and joy that recovery can bring, that somebody has to do, right?
Yeah.
Somebody did it for you, and somebody did it for me, and somebody did it for everybody else that's in recovery. We didn't find it on our own. Right? Somebody showed us how to find the path that God has given us through the work that we do in recovery. And so when a person goes from individual therapy to group therapy, you're now going to immerse in a process that educates you on why things are the way they are. What happened with the addiction, why the addiction started, what you can do to prevent relapse from happening, controlling your environment, making sure that you're engaging in aftercare. 30 days isn't enough. Making sure that you get a sponsor, go to meetings, get involved in church. Whatever it is, you have this process that we understand is how you, one, put down the drink and drug. Two, you find relief in a community of people that are just like yourself that have also given up the drink or drug. And then three, you find yourself in engaging in activities that provide you the real relief that you were looking for when you first started, that the drink and drug made you think that you had.
Yeah.
And so group therapy allows everybody to come together and share their
It's a safe place.
It's a safe place.
Very safe place.
Yeah. So, and then you have process time, right? It's not always about firing at will. And process time for us is whether you're on an outing, which is team building with the other clients, or big thing at PH Wellness is working out. You know, all of the owners.
Great facility.
Yeah, all the owners of PH Wellness are fitness guys.
Yeah.
Right? Whether former professional athlete like myself or former Ironman athlete like Matt Paz, ultra marathon runner like Barry Vince, or a BMX racer like Derek Stafford. We've all been involved in fitness, and so we really wanted the guests at PH Wellness to engage in what we love.
Right.
What we use as a Xanax.
Right.
The gym.
Right.
You know, because you don't come down from that.
Right.
You don't have a rebound or a withdrawal or more anxiety. It's like when you leave the gym, whether you worked your butt off and sweated or you just showed up and you put in some steps and walked around the gym, the dopamine and the serotonin and what the brain is doing when you're working out is something that doesn't have a negative effect on you when it's over. It only has a positive effect the more you do it. And so we have so many cool things that I think that make us really, really special. But the most special thing is our employees.
They are. I've gotten to meet them, and I can attest to that. I mean, I've been there. I've been there. I've toured it. I love it. I love the community, everything that you have there, and you're growing, right?
Yeah, we're growing. We now have we'll be licensed for 24 beds. by July, and we just left Tennessee, and it looks like we're going to go all in on an out-of-state facility in Tennessee, and we're going to try and have a hub that's closer to, our East Coast Midwesters and Southerners, and Tennessee was a great spot for us. So I think we should be pulling the trigger on opening up another facility in Tennessee.
That's great. You touched on recovery programs, and aftercare, and why is it so important that attending support group meetings, especially in early recovery, why is that so important? And having a mentor, they call it a sponsor in some of the support group meetings, or a mentor or coach.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Because instinct is instinct, and you can only operate based on instinct. The instinct that a person creates for themselves to respond to a pain point in their life that becomes an addiction, right? Once the behavior turns into an addiction, the addiction then just runs its course instinctually. When I feel, this is what I do. All you have to do is feel the discomfort that you felt in the beginning, or something that's replicated of it, a replication of that feeling, and the brain will automatically say, go drink or use. What we've learned is the feeling of go drink and use is extremely loud for people like you and me. It's so loud, it's an obsession that doesn't turn off. And it's like, you have to go do it because that's the only way to shut the voice up.
Right.
When you continue in support groups and getting a mentor and a sponsor, or hiring you as a sobriety coach, whatever it may be, what you're saying is, I'm no longer going to allow my instincts to control my behavior, because I'm going to approach this person, this place, or this thing that I go to, and I'm going to vulnerably tell them, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I want to go do. And that person's going to tell you, I've been there too, but this is what you're supposed to do. Go do this instead. Right? Go be of service. No, we need to go sit down, pray, and meditate about this. Sit on your hands, let this moment pass. Right? We have things that we've done that have helped us navigate that beginning process, because instinct is instinct. If you try and do it on your own, you will just go back to what you know, and that's comfortable, even if what's comfortable is self-destructive. What I do in my groups is, I have the very first group I always do is about instinct. Why you are the way you are. How your environment and the experiences you had in that environment shaped your beliefs and perspectives to create why you respond the way you respond. So if I throw anybody that's listening a ball right now, every single one of you are going to put your hand up and you're going to catch it. No one thinks about that. Because when you were young, you sat down with somebody in your environment who taught you how to play catch. Eventually, it became a process that you didn't have to think. You just had to look at the ball, put your hand up, and stop it. I'm going to throw you that ball every single time, and you're going to catch it because you don't want it to hit you. That's an instinctual behavior. A person who drinks and uses to relieve themselves of discomfort is no different than a person throwing them a ball, which is a representative of a feeling. Soon as that feeling comes at them, their brain says, put your hand up and catch it. Putting your hand up and catching it is drinking or using. If you don't have a sponsor, if you don't have a support group, and you don't have a new place, people, places, and things that you go to, when you feel something, your brain will tell you to go do what you do, and you will not have the willpower to overcome it by yourself. That's why you do it.
Right.
Because you recognize the things you do and why you do it is miscalibrated. And it needs somebody else to teach you how to catch the ball properly, because you haven't learned it correctly. It's the emotional world.
Right.
The fourth dimension of living is how do we respond to the things that we feel and that we can't see, but we feel them, but they're so powerful when we feel them, they control the behaviors. I tell you how to do it different. You tell them how to do it different. Do it on your own, and you're going to find out.
Right.
It won't work.
Wow, Hoff, you're appearing to make sense. This program is really working for you.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Hoff? What's the future? By the way, the fires in California, are y'all surviving these fires?
We are. I mean, we're in the same terrain. So Palisades is an hour and 15 minutes from us. It looks just like, in Riverside, it looks just like that. They're obviously just not as fancy as homes in affluent of area, but a fire could start out there in the hills where we're at. We get the Santa Ana winds, which is, 40, 50 mile an hour winds, sometimes 30 on average. And all it takes is a tree to catch fire. and the wind will blow those embers onto a rooftop, and then a rooftop, and the next thing you know, the whole area goes up. So we're always at risk of that. Fortunately for us right now, we're not dealing with any of those type of fires, because it was just, I can't imagine the devastation that, you know, people are feeling right now, because I don't know how they're going to end up getting a house.
Yeah.
Insurance companies.
It's good. Yeah, it's going to be catastrophic. You still throw your leg over a bike? You
no, heck no, bro. I don't want to get hurt. I don't, you know, people.
Anybody hitting you up to coach? Hey, will you know?
No, not so much anymore. I mean, my time has passed in the sport. I love it. I'll always be grateful for it. But I'm rarely around it. I watched the Olympics. I thought it was a great event for our sport, and a great thing for France. You know, they were first time a country has ever gone gold medal, gold, silver, and bronze on a podium. And I'm just so happy for Andre and Joris and Romain, because their president posted on their Instagram a picture of three of them. I can just only imagine the pride that their country felt in those three men who have worked their butts off for that type of thing. So I did watch the Olympics and shed a tear, you know, being happy for those three men that have worked hard for that moment, and how special that moment must have been for them and their country.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for everyone who's watching or listening to this, by the way, a special shout out to the Estes unit. I just got done speaking there. All the inmates across the country who are listening to this, M2 The Rock and Tony Hoffman, we've been there. We know where you're at. Do easy time. Serve your inmate. And and real quick, while they're listening to this, what did you do to pass time while you were locked up?
Well, I had to develop a routine.
Yeah.
That was it. I realized, make my bed, brush my teeth, and organize my stuff. And I had to really write my day out and figure out what my day was going to look like, because I figured out that having a routine is how you pass productive time.
Right.
If you don't have a routine, then you don't have productive time.
Right.
You have haphazard random time.
Yeah.
Random time is random results.
I'll never forget when you and I were talking, because I remember when I finally just was done kicking and detoxing, that I just woke up and I just made my bed in prison.
Yeah.
And I felt good.
Yeah.
You know, a sense of accomplishment. And then I created structure and routine in prison.
Yeah.
And I was doing easy time.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at the clock.
And I love that, because that was my first time I developed a sense of pride in myself. You know, the Bible says pride becomes before destruction and a haughty spirit before the fall. That type of pride is different than having pride in the work you do. Right? Getting up and making your bed and looking at it is something you can be proud of. I did that.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah, I can relate.
Do it to the degree that it looks good and you feel like you put effort in, right? Then after you learn how to make your bed, figure out how to organize your stuff.
Yeah.
Then figure out how to organize your friends groups and the places that you're going to go. Have pride in yourself to the degree that you don't do things that don't serve you.
Right.
And serve others along the way.
Right. Well, as we land this, let's have some fun. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So, favorite professional golfer?
Oh, man. I used to like Rory. And then his attitude, I'm like, dude, you suck, bro. I don't know. I always feel like he's bitter about stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love Tiger.
Yeah.
Nowadays, mostly because of his insight, reminds me a lot of Kobe. Yeah. But, you know, Bryson, a local hero. He's from my hometown. I just love his unapologetic approach to, he's not going to let golf change him.
Yeah.
So I follow him. His content's great. Yeah. He really has decided he's not going to let golf change him. And that rubs people wrong, because golf is a sport.
Right.
That's like, you need to be this.
Right. And he's outside the box.
He's outside the box, which, you know, both of us are outside the box.
Right. We're outside the box. And he's got a pretty good content creator crew, right?
Oh, yeah, he does.
Bryson
He does. I think you know them.
Shout out to the Molthan brothers. So really proud of them.
Yeah.
NBA team. Who's your NBA team?
Oh, Mavs.
Come on, Mavs.
Mavs, man. Luka Doncic is so amazing.
They going to do it this year?
We're in trouble. Luka's hurt. He's going to be out till next month, and then our center, Derek Lively, looks like he's going to be out for another 3 months. Yeah. But you know what? We're hanging in there. We only need to be good for the last 10 games of the season going into the playoffs for us to have some momentum. So I think we can redo what we did last year. It's just going to take a little bit more work than last year because of injuries, but that's sports.
You know, you've been I've seen you grow on social media. You've always been great at social media, but I've seen you grow and even become more transparent. You've always been transparent, but what I mean by that is as things are changing in your life, you've been speaking a little more openly about your faith.
Yeah.
And that's really cool, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's not you and I both talk about this. We don't use it as a marketing tool. It's just, this is where I'm at today.
Yeah.
What is your faith? How important is that to you?
It's funny that you asked that, because I have been a little more open about it.
And I'm complimenting you.
Thank you.
I feel it.
I have been more open about it, because I was very, not closed off, but I was very private about it for a while. I'll share this with you. I was speaking in Massachusetts, and I was in the middle of my speech. I've done this a lot, right? I can do my speech and think about what's for dinner.
Right.
And them not feel like
Right.
it's inauthentic, because it's still authentic, right? But I've done it enough.
I can relate.
I was like speaking in the middle of this speech, and I almost started crying. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I don't even want to do this. Like, these kids need to hear about God. Like, people are so broken.
Right.
Like, this isn't what they need. Like, they need to understand that there's a Godhead to their life, that they have a purpose,
Right.
and that their suffering won't be in vain, and that you're not going to find relief in social media. You're not going to find relief in the brand name clothes, and that you don't have to be friends with everybody, and you can have this purpose outside of what others are doing, and more people that are in line with you that make you feel whole will be on that journey, but you have to give everything up that you think you know. Because that's really what I want to tell people, right? But schools aren't going to let me do that.
Yeah.
So I just started having this feeling like I need to speak more about my faith.
Right.
I need to be a little more open about what God's doing in my life, because just because I don't talk about it doesn't mean that I don't drive in my car with no radio.
Right.
Because that's my time to talk to God.
Right.
Like, I'm a busy person, but I still find time for God every single day, because every day I got to get in a car.
Right.
And every day I make a decision whether or not I'm going to listen to music and distract myself. But I don't.
Right.
I have that relationship with God, right? I have the faith to say that not everything needs to go my way, because when it's not going my way, God's trying to either strengthen me for what's next or redirect me to something that he needs me to get to outside of what I thought I was supposed to be getting to, right? My faith is everything.
Yeah.
And it has been everything ever since January 21st, 2007, when I had my spiritual experience. Yeah. And me being the person that I am, that's basically like, when we get in the car, we're going to go as fast as we can. When I realized that God was real and loved me regardless of everything, and gave me gifts that I didn't ask for, that made me grateful for him, I realized that I need to just follow God with the same passion, with the same intention that I've done everything else. And as a result, things have kind of worked themselves out in a way that God's been able to continue to work in my life, because I've continued to seek his provision and his direction in my life. I've never let go of that, ever. I can't, because I told him, if you give me direction, I was at Wasco State Prison, cell 254 on the top bunk. If you give me direction, I promise you, I will never turn back.
Right.
Because I needed direction. I was so broken.
Right.
I was so broken. If he didn't do that, I was going to die. Then there was no point to life.
I can totally relate to that. I mean, and that's what's drawn me to you. I'm all about attraction, not promotion. And your vulnerability, your transparency, your rawness, the realness is what has attracted me to you. And I'll never forget the first time we met was you were speaking with Elizabeth Smart.
Yep.
And we were up at that deal, and I just gotten out of prison. I just was iHeart, and things were blowing up, and you and I exchanged numbers that day, and
I liked you ever since that day.
man, ever since that day.
Yeah. I've never really been one to gravitate towards normal people. I don't, it's just, because if you're normal, I want to know why.
Yeah, right.
Because not everybody's normal.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's like yourself can just unapologetically be who they are, I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
Because that means that they're sincere.
Yeah.
And they're authentic.
Tony, thank you so much for making time and hanging out with us today. We've been putting this in our pocket for a long time.
Yeah,
to get
we
the
have.
right setting.
We have, and
I want you to come on a lot. I want to have topics that we tackle. And
Sure.
The Hoff M2 show. Where we just tackle these topics and just square up and get all that. We're going to have all of Tony Hoffman's information description in the description below with PH Wellness, how you can reach out and get connected with them. Please reach out to them.
Yep.
I highly endorse them. Also, South Texas Recovery Foundation. I can't wait to tell you about this. It's an all men's recovery ranch non-clinical. They just go down there and work the 12 steps, and it's men only, and it's a 30, 60, 90-day program. This is hot off the press. You'll approve it. I thought about you when I was checking it out, and it's a great partnership with all three of us. So, Tony, thank you so much again. And you know me, I got 3 words for you. And it's got 8 letters, and it's got 1 meaning. You know what that is?
I think I know, but you go.
I love you.
I figured it was that. I love you too, bro.
Man.
You know that from the beginning.
You mean the world to me.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
From all of us at here at M to the Rock, go make it a great day.